Hi, my name is Rachel. I'm one of the creators of FDAI, and in this video, we will show you how it works. Now, FDAI does not claim to be better than Cloud or ChatGPT, but what we have done is that we have taught the system how to think like a lawyer. And what is the first question that a lawyer typically asks? What party are we representing? And this is exactly the first question that pops up when you upload a contract to the system. And why is this question important? When we were analyzing the different LLM models in the market, we noticed that one error that the models made is providing suggestions that could be bad for the client that we're acting for. So from this perspective, we wanted to make sure that the lenses in which the contract is reviewed or analyzed is the correct one. And in this instance, let's pretend we are the service provider, Meridian Route, and we'll press confirm. Now, the second question is setting the lens. And this is actually a trickier question than you think. In this question, what we're trying to understand is what are the rules and regulations we should consider. And it is not as easy as going to the governing law clause and saying, okay, it's governed by Hong Kong laws and all we have to care about is Hong Kong laws. Let's take this contract, not this contract per se, but a hypothetical contract, for example. Singapore company issuing shares in Singapore, but governed by Hong Kong law. Now, in this instance, not only do you have to care about Hong Kong law, you also have to take into account Singapore laws and regulations. And let's take one example. Singapore abolished the concept of par value of shares a long time ago. And if the contract states something like,
this clause specifies that the shares will be issued at par value.
we know that this is something that we will have to amend because this concept really does not exist in Singapore anymore. Now we press confirm, and the third question that the system will ask you is, what else should I know? Now, I prepared a set of instructions. I said, please review the contract, minimum term 18 months, auto renew with 1 month notice, 1 month termination period. And now let's let the system do its magic. Whilst the system is running, we will do a little bit of an experiment and play around with ChatGPT. What we'll do is we'll send the same set of instructions. Please review the contract. We've stated the exact same instructions, and let's see what it says. The first thing that we do admit is that ChatGPT runs really quickly, probably because they're funded way better, I guess. They do churn out the results much faster than the other models that we work with. But the devil is in the details, and let's take a look. What ChatGPT has done is that they have listened to my second sentence and my third sentence. They have looked at 12 months to 18 months. They looked at renewal. They looked at termination period, amending it. But what they really maybe forgot or maybe glanced through and didn't really answer is I said, please review the contract. Maybe let's do a little bit of prompting and say, okay, is there anything else that I should be aware of? Yeah, I think that could be a good sort of like broad question. Now, in this instance, remember, we are currently acting for the service provider. And let's take a look at some of the suggestions that ChatGPT has provided. The first suggestion is that the service provider can change or discontinue the service at any time. Now, if I'm the service provider, which I am acting for the service provider in this instance, this is a good suggestion. And I do not want to actually agree to the suggested change. But the system has made this suggestion, and if I'm not careful, I might have just done something that's actually bad for me. Let's take a look at a couple more suggestions. This level agreement. It says the agreement only provides for reasonable efforts, and the suggestion is that the service level standard should be 9.5% uptime. Now, if I'm acting for the customer, of course, this is something I want to impose as a customer. I want to ensure that the service levels are up and good. But if I'm acting for the service provider, that's not something I want to include. This is something that you want to ignore. Okay? And if you're not careful, you might, suggest, blindly incorporate that into your document. So that's a little bit of a careful thing you want to say. But okay, let's say we realize the system was wrong and we say, hey, I am the service provider. Please review your suggestions and put it table so that it is easy for me to implement. All right, let's go. Okay, so now this can be saved if I tell them who I really am. And then they have given me a good set of questions, their position, the recommendation, as well as a priority, which is great. And they have also provided the thing edits below. Let's see what Jessica, his boss, has provided. Now, this is what we call a key issues list. That's something that lawyers like myself and lawyers in quite a number of different firms would actually provide to their clients as a first cut, just to sort of like understand the big picture overview before diving into the details. And over here, the system has summarized. We would call this a red flag document, and it actually has service provider says that there's 0 high risk items, which I would then feel good if I'm the service provider. But there's 5 medium and 5 low items for me to consider. It has stated the issue, set up its observation, ranked the risk, as well as the suggested edit. So I think one of the things we wanted to do is from a UI perspective, we wanted to make sure that this was easy for the user to edit. And let's perhaps, go into the substance. Maybe do a comparison of the substantive clauses that they have suggested. So let's take a couple of issues just as an experiment. So the first issue that it has identified is, and I actually forgot to give you the context of the agreement. My apologies. The agreement is between a service provider, a SaaS solution service provider, and obviously the customer receiving. In this fictitious agreement is a logistics provider. The first suggestion is the PDA position is too thin for a cloud platform that may receive data, personal data, in short. And it has provided a suggested edit to say that to the extent that the operational data that the customer is giving contains personal data, the customer shall ensure, remember we're acting for the service provider, so the customer shall ensure that it has obtained all consents that's required. And that is good for the service provider. Now let's see whether ChatGPT has given a similar suggestion. Now this was the table that it produced, and as Control F data, there is no similar clause. I would say in this, and only clause it says is at limited export obligation to reduce those friction. And let's see, upon termination or expiry, the customer requests a one-time export of its operational data. So one comparison, I would say I would give Jessica a win, and I'll give ChatGPT a losing point, because this is a relatively important point. If you're a cloud service provider, personal data is such an important thing. You really want to flag that out. Okay, perhaps we got lucky. Let's look at a second example. Second example is an easy one because it was in our instructions. We wanted to say extend, ensures 18 months. So they detected that, hey, it's 12 months only. It's the 18 months. And this is also what ChatGPT has flagged as well, 12 months to 18 months. Now let's play around with the drafting edits that they have suggested. Let's look at the clause. It was 2.1. So it's over here, right? So for clause 2.1, this was a suggested edit. This agreement commences on the effective date and continues for an initial period of 18 months. Let's see what Jessica said. Now, this is really live, so I'm not actually down with the system. Jessica has given a much more comprehensive clause. To be honest, it didn't do a great job because it says edit 2.1 and 2.2. And 2.2 is kind of hidden here, which is not ideal. And we will definitely want to improve that moving forward. But let's look at the substance of 2.1, which is what they suggest over here. Agreement commences on the effective date and continues for a period of 18 months. Well, this is what they said as well. But Jessica added something. On the expiry of the initial term, this agreement shall automatically renew for successive periods of 12 months unless either party gives the other party at least 1 month's written notice. The initial term and any renewal term shall together constitute the term, unless this agreement is terminated earlier under clause 9. I love this. Sorry. I could be being a little bit biased over here, but I do love this. So let's Jessica 1 second time. Let's compare one just for intellect purposes. Let's not cover point 3 because that's the instruction we gave them. We can look at 8.2, which is what both of them have flagged. Point 2, the service provider liability cap is favorable to Meridian, but it should be protected against Singapore law enforceability challenge. Let's see what ChatGPT says. Limited to fees paid in previous 12 months, keep as it is, very standard SaaS language. Don't think they gave suggestions since it says that keep as it is. Now, let's see what the edit is. Nothing in this agreement excludes or limits any liability to the extent that such liability cannot be excluded or limited under applicable law, subject to the foregoing, the maximum extent permitted by law. The total aggregate liability should be 12 months. Fees paid before. So in this instance, I might actually first of all, I would have ranked this issue as low because whatever is unenforceable in Singapore would be unenforceable, notwithstanding what the contract says, right? So I would actually give ChatGPT a win because they didn't give me extra work to do that I didn't have to do. And I would actually rank it as low because, if it was unenforceable, it would be unenforceable in the first place. You don't have to write words to say that taking drugs is wrong. So in this, I would probably give ChatGPT the point. But what else the system can do? Let's give it feedback. I agree with your suggestion on liability cap, right? Since it's unenforceable already, we specify that. And let's see whether Jessica, gets moody and throws a towel at me, or whether she takes the feedback and really processes it. So we gave Jessica the feedback for the point that I didn't really agree with. And that's what Jessica says. You are right to push back. I would not describe the current cap as unenforceable already. The current drafting says this aggregate liability is capped to the maximum extent permitted by law. My earlier suggested wording was a belt and braces improvement, not a must-have. So then she took this suggestion into account, and she says to play around the system a bit more. I have further questions and I consult. Maybe instances where if you're not a lawyer and you're using the system to review a contract, you might want to get assurance about whether the system has made an error, whether you agree with the suggestions, or you have certain concerns that you want. After all, this is a AI-generated report. It is not a legal opinion by any means, neither is it an AI law firm. So we do have the ability for us to connect you with a lawyer. Currently, the lawyers that we have is a limited pool, but we do intend to extend that pool to more lawyers so that when you want to find a lawyer in Singapore or the country that you're in, we can connect you with the right lawyer, and that is FDAI. I hope you found this video very helpful. If you have any questions or suggestions, please let us know. This system has been built recently. It is not without its flaws, but we are constantly looking to improve it, make it better, and make better iterations of it. More features, more promo codes, as well as implementing more suggestions from you. We hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time. Bye.